The scripture for today is from Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 to 12. Then Jesus spoke to the people and to his disciples, saying to them, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit on the chair of Moses. Therefore, whatever they tell you to obey, obey and do it. But do not do according to their works, for they say and do not. And they bind heavy burdens and put them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to touch them, even with their finger. And all their works they do, just to be seen by men. For they widen the fringes of their garments, and they lengthen the ends of their robes. And they like the chief places at feasts. They like the chief places at feasts, and the front seats in the synagogues, and the greetings in the streets, and to be called by men Rabbi. But you should not be called Rabbi, for one is your master, and all you are brethren. And call no one on earth Father, for one is your Father in heaven. Nor be called leaders, for one is your leader, the Christ. But he who is greatest among you, let him be your servant. For whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted." And so ends the reading for today. And now Dr. Lyle will give us our sermon lesson for today.
Well, I think this was written probably within the 100 years subsequent to Jesus' time here on the planet. And these are part of the words spoken by Jesus, and these are spoken shortly before the crucifixion. And I know that that's another time of the season, but it's something for us to look at the moment. We have the process of the elections having taken place, and we have a new leader coming into vogue here, and will be sworn in January. And I think we're all looking forward to that event. And part of this scripture, is a reminder to us that we live here on the planet, we live here with other people, we are subject to the laws of the land that we live in, and there's a direct reminder here that there are people that sit in position of power, and it's for us not to chafe with those positions of power, but to live as best we can with the law of the land. So that's part of what takes place in the scripture. But also what takes place is the clear thought, or the idea is not to emulate a lot of these people that are our so-called leaders. And, we've just been through an administration that a lot of people on the planet didn't particularly like, although people did by and large go along with it, and they certainly were enthusiastic about its beginning. But certainly by the end of this administration, people have not been happy with it, and I don't think that's news to anybody here. And there's many things that have taken place that we don't all agree with, and the admonition is for us not to do as others do, not to do as some of those leaders do. We aren't familiar with all of the things that take place in the government. It's a complicated world that we live in, and it's very difficult for us in the position that we're in to be able to judge some of the decisions that are made. So it's best for us to leave that alone. But certainly some of the actions, some of the conduct that takes place, we can look at that and we can see that many times that's not conduct we should emulate. We have this new administration coming, and of course the great test of that administration will be whether or not our newly elected chief executive officer of this country will be a man of service to this country, or he will be in it for his own reasons and his own constituency. Clearly, our scripture points out that those in the leadership position should be of service to their community, to their country, to those around them, their families. So it is for us, as we look at that, and we look across the world, and we see many, many, many people that have reached what we call high places of honor. And yet when we look at the type of lives that they lead and the things that they do, we're not always in agreement with that. And somehow we have questions with regard to that. We wonder how they get to that position of authority. And surely we do not know or understand the path that is chosen by these people, and we don't know and understand the reasons for them doing some of the things that they do. We do know that from an appearance standpoint, many times there's actions that happen that we should not emulate. What is bothersome to me, that regardless of how many times we go over it, we still tend to judge people by the position that they've attained in the world, as if that were the be-all and the end-all. We don't seem to judge people by the amount of good that they do. In fact, we hardly even notice it. In fact, those that are doing the most good, we don't notice. They're quiet. They're out of the limelight. As a nation, we seem to be more concerned about the latest pop singer, the latest rock singer, the latest movie star, the latest teenage idol. These seem to be the things that are of importance to us. And we're quite forgiving of their personal lives and the things that they do in their personal lives. We're caught up in the position that they've achieved, the fact that people are infatuated with them. And I think the same is true in our political arena, is we look at people that have achieved position of power as if they've done some great thing. And for ourselves, many of us, our ways of lives are dictated by what rung of the ladder we arrive at. Do we become famous within our group, our company, in our city, in our state, in the world that we live in? And if we become famous, then what does that give us? And we can be famous for many things. The clear essence of this scripture is pointing out the pitfalls or the lack of value that it is to attain positions of power. The scripture is very clear on what our obligation is to ourselves and to our fellow man. And that obligation is to be of service.